If you can't get excited about the future after that showing, I don't know what to tell you.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm in Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Please go to the YouTube channel. Search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit subscribe, turn notifications on. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Cardinals get a massive win. And we could talk about, draft implications and stuff at a later date. We can talk about Houston getting a win at a later date. We can talk about New England losing today, again, at a later date. We'll talk about all that at a later date. I've talked a lot this offseason and through this season about Cardinals winning games is better than them losing them. And while in a normal season, that would put people to sleep with that analysis. But what we saw today in Pittsburgh with the two weather delays, with America thinking the Cardinals were going to lose this game, including me, all the Cardinals did was come out, enforce their strength, have a competent game plan on both sides of the ball, and execute. They didn't beat themselves. Was it ugly? Yeah, at times, absolutely. Wasn't perfect. The defense, the defense stole the show here. And I'll discuss two players, Trey McBride and James Conner, in the second segment, Hollywood Brown in the third. But you've got, in my opinion, I will never tell you everydayers how to think. I will just tell you what I think and the reasons why, and maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. Picture this performance with a wide receiver one, a starting left tackle, a starting left guard, a pass rush, corners. Imagine this performance, this stencil of performance with actual NFL talent across the board, 1-53 on game day. That's why I'm so excited this season. I've gotten a lot of crap for being negative when things are going well, when I could see the forest through the trees, and I was right about Cliff Kingsbury. I don't know if I was right about Kyler Murray. I don't know if I was right about a lot of things yet. But so far, Jonathan Gannon, Nick Rallis, and Drew Petzing have done an incredible job given the task at hand in 2023. Hasn't been perfect. There have been big mistakes, sure. This is a rookie coaching staff. And what we've seen this year, more times than not, I think that's fair to say. It's not an absolute. It's not every week. It's not every down. What we've seen more times than not is a team that's been more prepared and more driven to succeed than what we saw in the last four seasons, regardless of win-loss record for those teams in their respective years. And that has massive building application for a team that was in full teardown mode going into this offseason. And I don't think it can be overstated. Seeing wins like this are wins that the Detroit Lions had 3 years ago. One of them against the Cardinals, when the Cardinals were, I think, the one seed in the NFC at that time. When I preach proof of concept, this today, the 24-10 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, is the dictionary definition of it. They don't have the best team. They had 7 wins. Kenny Pickett got hurt. There were 2 lightning delays. But the Cardinals played hard on the road in the morning window against a team they should have lost to with a really good defense, a good pass rush, good corners, and they handled them. And this isn't negating or erasing their poor performances this year. We knew this was going to be a journey. We didn't know what it was going to look like. And I'll tell you what, through 13 weeks, like luckily the Cardinals have their bye next week. There's in no rational world where any NFL team should have to wait until week 14 for their bye week. There's no way. If you want to go to the 2-bye system, add another week 19, and every team has 2 bye weeks, which I think they should do. It'll elongate. You won't even know that a couple teams are on a bye every week if you're fantasy football fans or you like to watch Red Zone or whatever. But through 13 weeks, what we've witnessed is exponentially greater than it should have been. There's no rational world that the Cardinals should have been in contention for the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season like they were. It wasn't perfect. It was gross. It was ugly. But they could have won 4 out of their first 5 games. With a roster that was forgotten. With a roster that was incomplete. You couldn't even say it's a failing roster because it wasn't completely built. Because it's going to take more than 15 minutes to rebuild everything that Steve Keim hurt and ruined. There was no infrastructure. And the fact that the Cardinals are winning games in week 13 on the road against a fringe playoff team that would have been in a playoff spot if they won today. That shows massive intestinal fortitude by this team. And who prepares guys for that? Sure, they do themselves. Coaching staff. Players buying in during a lost season. And that cannot be understated or cannot be overstated. Cannot be understated. Cannot be understated. Cannot be understated. One of them. Cannot be whatever the right one is. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. That's why it's so exciting for the future that, again, it's not perfect. And Kyler Murray didn't play particularly well today. He threw 3 touchdown passes and 1 counted. One was on a hold to the Rondale Moore dime in the second half. He threw 2 touchdown passes in back-to-back plays. Trey McBride, 1 counted. He looked fine. Didn't look great. He didn't knock the doors off the Kyler Murray for the future conversation. I still think he should be the guy. I do. But imagine him with 3 capable offensive linemen instead of 2. That's not fair to Will Hernandez. 3 100% competent offensive linemen instead of 2.5. Maybe 1 on the left side in DJ Humphries. It's unfortunate to watch. It's sad to watch. Yeah, that's going to be an offseason conversation. You hope guys like that. You just hope that they could play great forever, or play average forever. But that's going to be a conversation that will need to be had. Didn't miss Zach Ertz today. Didn't miss whatever RB2 there was. Michael Carter had a nice scored through today for 18 or 19 yards. Showed some giddy up. But if you watch today, inclement weather, and these aren't like things that, teams win games in inclement weather every week, or especially after, the middle of November, especially on the east of the Mississippi. This was a solid, convincing win by a team. They were 5.5-point dogs. And they just went into that stadium and handled the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it doesn't matter who their opponent is. Oh, Kenny Pickett's not good. Oh, the offense isn't great. Oh, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. The Cardinals are the worst team in football, or second worst team in football. Any team they play is better than them. This was the proof of concept for a full 60 minutes that took about 3 days to play, that the Arizona Cardinals desperately needed as they start to see the 2023 season end and the beginning of the future begin. Massive win by the Cardinals. Trey McBride, James Conner. Yup. Let's hit it next as we roll on here. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by BetterHelp. Okay, so I've been to therapy throughout my life on and off. I know how much it helps. And, whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give to yourself. And the holidays are a great time to do that. So whether it's by starting therapy, going easier on yourself during the tough moments, or treating yourself to a day of complete rest, remember to give yourself some love this holiday season. I have to remind myself sometimes I'm hard on myself a lot. And, therapy helps. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Cardinals win 24-10. This one felt good. This one felt like an artist drawing an outline of what his or her next masterpiece is going to be. I'm not saying the Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals 2.0 moving forward is going to be a masterpiece, but this is the outline. It's abstract still. It's theory-based, and we saw it in action today. It's abstract because it hasn't happened yet. They haven't brought in the players. They haven't drafted the players. They haven't retained the players. They haven't let players go. But what we saw today for 60 minutes was a team that was competent, convicted, and is a couple above average players away from making some real noise in this league. And I don't think I'm too close to the situation to say that. I mean, we've seen some really ugly football this year with Kyler Murray and without Kyler Murray. Today felt good. Just quick numbers. Cardinals 10 of 17 on third down was big. They held the Steelers to 130 yards rushing, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. They've been world beaters on the ground. Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. Penalties, 6 for 51. A couple of them were towards the tail end, and they won the turnover battle, and they didn't turn the ball over. They were on the field for pretty much 50% of the game, too, 29 minutes and change. The keys to victory for me path to victory going into the game were win the turnover battle, get after Kenny Pickett, which, kind of became null and void after he got hurt, and stop the run. Make Kenny Pickett beat you, make inevitably Mitchell Trubisky beat you. And they did a good enough job to do it. They capitalized on scoring opportunities. James Conner has a nose for the end zone that other running backs don't necessarily have. You see the brotherly shove that other teams are trying to adopt. You're seeing quarterbacks get hurt, okay? That's going to have a shelf life. You're going to need a running back that has a nose for the end zone that can get in. And James Conner, arguably top 5 in the NFL at being able to do so. And it's something that not all running backs have. I always go back to Kenyon Drake. Cardinals had plenty of goal line opportunities when Kenyon Drake was here. They could never seem to get in the end zone. Bring in James Conner, immediate. That's why James Conner needs to be an Arizona Cardinal in perpetuity until he retires. And this isn't, I'm not saying give him $30 million guaranteed. Not what I'm saying. Nobody's going to give him that. So it's not like the Cardinals have to be like, hometown discount, dude. Come on, come back. We'll give you 3 year. We'll give you like 12 mil guaranteed. Why don't you come back? I think that especially with the money that they have, and I think he's under contract for 1 more year. I still think they need to extend in this offseason. Lower the cap hit for this year, maximize their free agency capabilities this year, and he's got to be a guy. Even if he only touches the ball 40% of the time, or even 30% of the time, in a couple of years from now. He's a guy that the Arizona Cardinals desperately need in an effort to keep them going. So he has 1 more year on his deal. It's a small cap hit. It's a small. The cap hit's 8.5. Okay. They have a potential out in 2024. So coming up, so he has money coming, but they could restructure him and give him a little bit more cheese, maybe add on another year or 2 years. It doesn't have to be 5 years. You know, he's a free agent in 2025. Okay, maybe add 2 more years. Front load it so he gets his money up front. Okay, I think he desperately needs to be an Arizona Cardinal. Had a massive day today. 2 touchdowns. He had 105 yards rushing. He ran off a 30-yarder when the game was pretty much out of reach, but got in the end zone twice. And, you know, that's what he does. Trey McBride, Steve Keim's last gift to the Arizona Cardinals, 8 for 89 and a touchdown. He's the dude. They've got him. And look across the NFL. Young tight ends are a must now. Young stud tight ends, you know, whether it be Sam Laporta, Pat Freiermuth looked okay. I mean, the quarterback play is not great there. Luke Musgrave, before he got hurt, was showing flashes. Like, the new wave of tight end is coming with Travis Kelce getting older, George Kittle still there, Mark Andrews still there, but, you know, these new young tight ends who could be on a team for 10 years. The Cardinals seem to have found their guy so far. And that's one box you can just check. One thing that the Cardinals have not been able to do over the last couple seasons is have more boxes checked than question marks. And being able to have a guy as your tight end one where you can just set and forget, it's massive. So thank you, Steve Keim, for one of your 4 solid draft picks over 10 years. Thank you. Can we just talk really quickly how asinine that was? The Cardinals needed offensive line help, cornerback help, pass rusher help. He traded for Hollywood Brown and then drafted a tight end in the 2nd round. How asinine is that? I just needed a second. But Trey McBride seems to have worked out. They gave him a 1st-round pick for Hollywood Brown, who had about 7 good games as an Arizona Cardinal in a season and a half. Through today's game, there are some things that came out. Okay. One, when the defense has pass rush talent and cornerback talent, they're going to be really good. And that's not saying, oh, duh, once you have more talent, you're going to be good. No. Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson are still there. They're still a force. The pass rush is almost non-existent. B.J. Ojulari was in the backfield a couple times today, so that's good. Garrett Williams didn't get burned at all. That's good. All the other corners did. When Kazir White comes back to be that heartbeat in the middle of the defense, you add a couple pieces there, whether through the draft or free agency. You saw today what the defense looked like with 5 NFL starters on it, 6. Imagine if there were 9. Imagine if there were 10. You saw what this offense looked like. They had that 99-yard long drive starting at the 1-yard line, starting at their 1-yard line. Imagine if they had a wide receiver 1. Imagine if they had an offensive line they can hold up, especially on the left-hand side. Proof of concept. And James Conner and Trey McBride showed that Drew Petzing's offense works, especially with the running back and tight end. Now, if they can add a little help on the outside and give Kyler Murray a little bit more protection time, they're going to have to figure out, the one thing they're going to have to figure out, among other things, is they're going to have to, Kyler Murray's going to have to go into the lab and figure out how to not get so many balls batted down at the line. Because now teams have figured him out. If you're not going to get to him, step back and jump. If you're not going to get to him, step back and jump. And he'll throw the ball right into your hand. And it'll get knocked to the ground. That's one constant thing that Kyler Murray has not gotten better at. Just a little, wrinkle here at the end that I just thought of. We'll talk about this more during the offseason and everything like that. But all in all, Trey McBride, James Conner accounted for 3 touchdowns today, almost 200 yards with their respective, position. It's massive. Now they just got to fill in the holes. Alex Lansey, Locked On Cardinals. Is the Hollywood Brown experiment over? I mean, this isn't as simple as yes or no, which makes it for a fun segment. Let's hit it next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Game time, game time. If you want to get tickets, sometimes it's hard. It's just hard. You don't know where to go. Okay. Football, basketball, hockey, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. The Game Time app is the only ticketing app that gives you the complete peace of mind with your purchase. My favorite thing about them, and I'll talk about this every single time, you can see the vantage point from the tickets, where, like, what it's going to look like from where you're sitting if you buy those tickets. It's panoramic, man. You sit on the app, you just go boop, 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 and it shows you your whole vantage point. It's awesome. You can get tickets up to an hour after some events start. So there's no reason to not take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your purchase, of your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Cardinals win. Fall to 3-10. Kind of. Tankathon Tuesday segment tomorrow. It's going to be fun. Houston Texans are good. And I do want to mention this too, because it could be a little bit off-putting watching the Texans just ball out. 7 wins. I think they're 7-5. Will Anderson is having a great rookie year. CJ Stroud is all world, it seems like already. Nico Collins, Tank Dell before he got hurt today. That sucks. He's going to be out for the year, I think. Defense looks good. Jalen Petrie, Derek Stingley. Think about this, though. You can't directly compare a couple things. You can't compare CJ Stroud to the Cardinals because the Cardinals never would have drafted CJ Stroud. So you can't do that. The Houston Texans decided that this is the year they were going to level up, not next year. So they traded away their first round pick for 2024 because they already have Cleveland's to move up and get Will Anderson. What would have happened if the Cardinals drafted Will Anderson? He probably would have been good with the Cardinals. Their offensive line would have been awful. I still think Paris Johnson Jr. and what they did was the right move. Houston's and the Cardinals, like the planes, like geometry, like the planes of what they're building towards and the path in which they're trying to get there are completely different. They're not parallel. They're not perpendicular. It's something else. Because the Texans had a couple really good sneaky drafts. 2 years ago was Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie. 2 guys, safety corner for the future. Boom. Nico Collins. They snagged Tank Dell this year. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be staring the Cardinals in the face potentially, unless they win another game and they drop to 4th overall. And it seems like there's no other quarterback aside from Caleb Williams and Drake May. They're going to go 1 or 2. So the Cardinals have 3. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. there, and you take him. I still think that there are other things the Cardinals need much more desperately than wide receiver, even though the Cardinals don't have a wide receiver 1. But being able to draft wide receivers, not in the first round, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, is a cheat code in the NFL. It's a massive cheat code. And it seems like the Cardinals, if Michael Wilson comes back healthy again this year, we'll see what happens as we go down the stretch. I'm not sure if they want to give him some run in a lost season, but he had some injuries concerns in Stanford. He's got some injury concerns here. It's just something to watch because they have so many needs elsewhere. Yet, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Texans, they got star players from different rounds aside from their top 10 picks, which is, again, the aforementioned cheat code. And the Cardinals just need to start. And, through 2023, it seems like they got some guys in later rounds that are going to pay dividends. I mean, Dante Stills again today played pretty well. Imagine if he's got some veteran talent near him and not just out in open water by himself pretty much. Like Fotu played pretty well again, but we know what his ceiling is at this point. Hollywood Brown. Was hobbled with a heel injury this week. Gave it a go. 0 catches on 3 targets. And then I think they sat him towards the end of the game, which made sense once they were out of the danger zone there. This is so much more difficult than just a wide receiver who isn't performing well. There's so many different layers to this. Not so many, a couple. Kyler Murray's best friend, one of them. I can't remember who it was on Twitter who reached out to me that said, what about this package deal thing that you've been talking about? And I get that. Like, the package deal thing should be a tie goes to the package deal. It's like they don't even know if you're going to resign him or not. He's played fine. He's played average to slightly above average. You give him a contract extension, but it's Kyler Murray's best friend, and they are on the same page. So you just do it. Tie goes to the tandem. But if it's not close, they ain't just going to extend Hollywood Brown because he's friends with Kyler Murray. And we're starting to see the separation of it's an average to, okay, I could see them re-signing and extending Hollywood Brown to, oh, yeah, it ain't going to happen, dog. Ain't going to happen, dog. See, the thing that sucks is that Christian Kirk probably would do very well in this offense. Hollywood Brown, like, the tough part about Drew Petzing's offense, at least, so we've seen so far, is it doesn't. You need a good run game and good tight ends, 100% in this offense. And the most of the NFL is the case, but tight ends aren't used as heavily as in this offense. It's a Cleveland Browns offense. You don't need an all-world wide receiver for it to work. So it's like, well, is Hollywood Brown worth, 3 years and $40 million guaranteed? And we'll see. He doesn't get separation anymore. And this could be on Kyler Murray, but let me tell you, I don't see a world as of right now, and there are still some games left to play. Hopefully he comes back healthy and we get to see, the full shot. I don't see a world where they bring him back at this point. The thing, my biggest nightmare, and every day as you'll know this, if this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, thank you. Why don't you make tomorrow your second listen? My biggest nightmare came true last year when DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown weren't able to play meaningful snaps together. And it wouldn't have mattered because Tyler Murray tore his ACL anyways, but we never got to see it. Hollywood Brown was force-fed as a wide receiver one through the first 6 weeks of last year. He got hurt in a game that was out of reach, one of the last plays of the game. The week before DeAndre Hopkins was set to come back, we never got to see it. I don't think Hollywood Brown was brought in here to be a wide receiver one. And you can find wide receiver twos. They aren't as prevalent as people think. But if you can get a bona fide wide receiver one or something close to it and a couple of, role veteran players, that's fine. You got Trey McBride. He might be your, Travis Kelce at this point. We don't know. But if this offense or Drew Petzing for the next couple of seasons is going to be run the ball, throw the ball at tight end, set up play action for some deep bombs once in a while, you can't warrant paying Hollywood Brown. You got Greg Dortch. I'd rather Greg Dortch get Hollywood Brown's route tree and targets at this point. Hollywood Brown has not proven, even with his history with Kyler Murray, that he deserves wide receiver one targets. And this offense is still a work in progress. Kyler Murray still coming back from an ACL. But as I mentioned last week, this was the beginning of the last chapter of this conversation. There's been myriad chapters throughout this offseason. It was the who's going to be GM and head coach. And then what's Kyler Murray's timetable? Who's going to be starting quarterback? Traded for Josh Dobbs. What are expectations? Wow, they're playing better than expected even though they're losing games. Josh Dobbs looks like Josh Dobbs. And then Clayton Tune in Cleveland, and then Kyler Murray. And then the last chapter, or the penultimate chapter, was give Kyler Murray a couple of games to get his legs back. He got 3, played well in one, okay in the other, bad in the third. And this is the beginning of the last chapter to determine who's going to be on this team in 2024 and beyond. Kyler Murray played well today, played fine. Hollywood Brown was non-existent. I don't know how much the injury had to do with it. But all of the pressure for the remainder of the season for one player's specific future is on Hollywood Brown's shoulders. Go show you deserve $17 or $18 million a year, or you're going to go the way of Christian Kirk, and it won't be with the Arizona Cardinals. Alex Lancy, Locked On Cardinals. I will talk to you on Tuesday.